Up on the roof, repairing a leak at the scupper drain. While it's not as bad as it could have been, it's a lot worse than I thought it was.
Buckle up for safety as I give you a day in the life of online. No, not online. I'm actually there. Facilities maintenance.
Heidi-ho there. Back on the roof of the modular. And I'm getting into that time of year when I need to start looking at these scupper drains. I did a temporary repair on the one that was leaking in early December. We've now got a bit of good weather. I've got 4 days forecasted for nice weather. And here's the thing, you see, these scuppers were not installed correctly. Here's a good example of what I'm talking about. Look at these two scuppers here. What do you notice? On this one, you see some weird attempt at seam flashing, maybe? And the one on the right, there's nothing. You see the EPDM membrane going right in behind that grate. That might look nice and clean, but that is completely incorrect. So is that. That one almost looks like it's faked. Or this one, nobody took the time to fake it. They're showing you what's up here. The giveaway that I'm talking about here, the very fact that these two should look exactly the same, but they're different. And both of them are incorrect. The people who installed these did not know what they were doing. They were not roofers. What we should see on these scuppers is not a smooth surface here. We should see very wide strips of flashing covering the scupper itself. The fact that we can't see the scupper is a problem. It's a copper box scupper that's been installed in here, and the flange, when you install it, needs to be on the outside of the EPDM membrane. What it looks like they have done is they installed the copper box scupper directly onto the wood before there was any roofing membrane in place. I'm not sure how they sealed it, but they stuck it in the hole and then put the roofing membrane over top of that, and then put that clamp seal around there, which that's only intended to hold this grate in place. That's not intended to seal the scupper. Let's take a look at this one that I did the temporary repair on back in December because it's exposed. It's difficult to see it from the camera angle, but that copper scupper box actually has a back slope to it. At the very least, it should be level, and ideally I'd like to see it sloping downwards in the direction that I want the water to drain, not sloping back. They've somehow how the copper scupper box, this is metal back here, this is my copper, and how it is covered over with membrane, with EPDM membrane material. It shouldn't be. I should be seeing copper here. You put a whole tube of a butyl type sealant in behind the copper flange, which wraps all the way around here. Stick this tight into the hole. Using copper nails, you nail it in place, so now you've got a mechanical connection, and then you put down your flashing. The flashing is what does the sealing, because the box itself is watertight. There are no open seams on these copper boxes. They're waterproof. But only if it's in front of the membrane. If it's behind the membrane and you cut a hole through that membrane, well, now you've just got a hole in your roof. So part of my dilemma is, do I fart around with these things and try and make them work? Or do I literally cut them out completely It's just at this stage, what's the best approach now that we are already here? I really have difficulty not doing something the way it was supposed to be done, because if you don't do it the way it's supposed to be done, you're just going to run into issues down the road, and we're down that road. We're here right now. I've got 3 of them that are leaking. The one that I repaired back in December, it's not leaking now, but the one right beside it is leaking. And another one that's leaking is this one right over my shoulder here. Not much. Nobody's noted it yet. Nobody's complained about it, but I can start to see some staining in the ceiling tiles, which is a dead giveaway that we've got water coming in there. See, the proper repair for these things would be to literally take a knife and cut out around it, drill out the rivets, and pull the whole thing right out. Seam in a whole new piece of EPDM, basically delete what is there, basically do a new installation. But I've only got a couple of days of no rain, and then it's going to start raining again, so I can't get too far into it. I have to just kind of do them one at a time so I can have things done and buttoned up again before it starts raining. Okay, I've decided what I'm going to do. I am going to remove this copper scupper box completely. That will involve cutting around the perimeter of the box flange itself and drilling out the rivets that you see there. And once I have that out of the hole, then I will decide how best to tackle this one. This is the one that's actively leaking into the classroom right now. I'll bring you along so you can see what I do, for better or worse. I think I'm going to attempt the first one with the 12-inch wide pieces of quick seam that I have. That will hold up. It's overkill compared to what just a new sheet of EPDM is, but I don't have that. So I can do the first one with the quick seam and just see if I'm on the right track. Then I can decide whether to go and get myself a small roll of EPDM material or continue using the quick seam. The quick seam is an expensive way to do it, I think. That's the problem. I think it would be more economical in the long run, since I have 8 of them to do all together, to do the remaining 7 with EPDM, providing I can get it in small quantities.
Because of the way the contractors installed these, the bolt bosses are just completely gummed up with butyl. Installed correctly, they'd never need to see a drop of sealant at all. Again, I shouldn't have to cut or pry this thing off. It should just come off. There shouldn't be anything sticking it to the scupper itself. What you're looking at here is somebody's attempt to seal up the hole that they intentionally cut in the roof. There's irony here.
Definitely put the scupper, the copper scupper, underneath the roof membrane. I've got to remove this whole thing and then restore the membrane and then reinstall the scupper. I wish I knew what this goo was. Is this a product that they use to put down and create some kind of slope? It's all mushy. Like, water's been coming through here. This is rusted, and it's not copper. When you're using a copper scupper, you have to use copper nails. You cannot use dissimilar metals. You have a galvanic reaction that happens, So copper scupper, copper nails.
Just in case you weren't convinced already.
The way water is oozing out of here, it's safe to say that water has been getting in behind here.
In the future, I will not work so hard to try and pull out the rubber that they glued into the throat of the scupper to seal up the hole that they cut in the roof. It doesn't really need to come out. I just need to pull the nails on the scupper itself and pull out the whole thing.
So look at, after only a few short years, how rusted these roofing nails are, because they didn't use copper nails. Just trying to give myself a little bit more clearance to get this scupper out of here. I'm trying to remove it without doing any damage at all, because I want to reuse it if I can. If I can't, I'm going to be buying 8 new scuppers, because I imagine the situation I'm running into here will be exactly the same at all the others.
These guys miss the mark at every turn. You can see clear evidence of water getting in behind the scupper with the rust staining from the nails. That's showing you a nice water pattern. But what else is missing here? There should be a whole bunch of butyl sealant in behind the flange of the scupper before you stick it in through the opening.
Well, it's out. Let me show you what I found.
Water was definitely getting in behind here. I mean, we know that already, but you can see how it's been happening over time, because look at the water squishing out of this wood. So I actually would like to I'd like to leave this open for a day or two, just to let this dry out. The wood's already starting to rot.
As far as this scupper box is concerned, I think I'm going to see if I can find a replacement. You notice some small hairline cracking right here. It doesn't go all the way through, but there's cracks in the solder here. And the throat of the scupper itself, they've cut too much of it off. It should be about 1 inch longer than it is.
This must be something that's used to help form the pan that the drain sits in, maybe? Create slope towards the drain? Oh, styrofoam under there. If anybody knows what this stuff is, let me know in the comments. It must be a product used to create the slope you want to run towards the drain. But I would think that it would cure and not be mushy if exposed to water. But what do I know? Maybe it's designed to be malleable when wet. I do not know. What I do know is this is not good. So I have more of a repair here, possibly. See how far this goes. I'll have to cut back a little further. I might have more of a repair here than I first thought. And like so many things, and any of you contractors who give quotes, you start digging into things and you find more. You always have to build the potential things that you're going to find into your quote to give an accurate quote on a job. And a lot of people don't understand that. Anyone who's been in business for themselves like I have fully understands that. As I'm digging into this and opening it up, I'm finding more and more things. I need to let this dry out a little bit. It's not going to rain tonight. It's not going to rain tomorrow.
So I dug out the building plans and took a closer look at things. There are roof drains and scuppers in the building plan, but there are no roof drains on this roof at all. And what I think they did is that these square depressions that you see at the low points of each roof, they were intended for an actual roof drain, and the scuppers were intended to be installed about 6 feet from the drain in case the drains got clogged, not as the main drain. So not only did they not put in the proper drain, the drain that they did put in, the scupper drain, they installed it incorrectly.
I'm pulling out the wet insulation from down inside here, and if I reach in far enough, this is, well, it was OSB. It's just all mush now.
Well, I've pulled out all the insulation, and there's a few remnants of pink fluffy insulation stuck to the wood, but what you're looking at here is the cavity where the moisture was getting trapped in. It's ugly, but it could be worse. Unfortunately, short of tearing everything apart, it's not really accessible to replace this little bit of damaged wood. I don't think it's necessary. I'm not seeing any structural concerns, and once it's had a chance to dry out, any deterioration will stop.
I'm ever glad I caught this now. If this would have been allowed to continue for another 6 months or a year, we'd be rebuilding this whole section here. Should be able to leave this open for a couple days and let all of this dry out. I hope I don't find the same thing at the rest of them. Very possibly that one there, which was also leaking. I might find some damage behind that one as well. No, this is all solid behind here, so I think I'm okay. I'm just flabbergasted actually that this is so bad. I'm so glad I caught this now. Had it been allowed to continue before we discovered it for another 6 months or a year, the repair could be a lot more extensive than what I need to do now. I just pulled out of the roofing supply store, and I learned something that I'm not very pleased about. One of those copper scuppers, to buy a single one is almost $500. If I buy 8 of them, I can get them down to closer to $300 a piece. That changes my plan a little bit. I just can't bring myself to spend $2,500. I am just going to very carefully extract all the other scuppers, reuse them. Just make sure I don't damage them in any way that's going to cause them to leak. The other thing I found out, I wanted to buy copper nails, and they looked at me funny, like I didn't know what I was talking about. I said, well, it's ideally to nail down a copper flange, I want to use copper nails, and they're like, oh yeah, everybody just uses regular treated roofing nails. I guess that's what I'll be using. Again, not my first choice. Oftentimes in my job, you come across things that you can't always do things exactly the way you want to do them. and you need to not cut corners. That's not the way I'm looking at this. Make compromises even sounds a little bit strong. Make fiscally responsible choices to keep your bottom line where you need it to be. That's what I'm doing. Just gonna grab some roofing nails now. Well, this may seem a little hack, but I grew up on a farm, and so every once in a while I need to deploy some of my farmer engineering skills. There was a slight hairline crack on this side. It doesn't look like it goes all the way through. I can't see it on the other side. I've cleaned it up and looked very closely and I don't see it. But that's not stopping me from reinforcing this side with some JB Weld epoxy. I don't have to worry about it ever leaking then. If I do that, I can install it confidently. $500 a piece. That's ridiculous. Mind you, this is Canada. Everything is more expensive here. So given the exchange rate, $500, you'd be looking at 400 US. Wouldn't surprise me if I could walk into a roofing supply store in the US and buy one of these for maybe 125. Well, armed with my bucket and repaired scupper, I'm ready to head up to the roof. I'm trying to make sure I only have to do this in one trip, because going up and down the ladder with tools and equipment is a pain. So many tools, so many parts, so many trips up and down the ladder, and I just realized I forgot something else. I was standing in my office going, what is it that I've forgotten? I know there's something else, and it wouldn't come to mind. And I get up here now, it's my riveting gun and 4 rivets. But I won't be needing those for a while yet, and so I will just pick up where I left off last time. Dried out down here now. Johnny come lately, there's a new kid in town. I know, like it feels like forever. Yeah, I noticed you're wearing a new hoodie, that's nice. New York, nice, a New York hoodie. Very cool. Absolutely. Yeah, tear it apart, put it back together again.
So now with our EPDM membrane put back together the way it should have been prior to these contractors butchering it, I can get ready to install the scupper as it should have been installed in the first place.
Can you believe that after all that I went and cut a hole in the thing? Guess what? I forgot one more thing. I was just going to apply my my water stop mastic, it's basically butyl, around the opening here before sticking the scupper back in. Guess what I don't have? I'll be right back. So while you're only looking at half the installation so far, it's actually watertight as it stands right now. That butyl sealant that I applied behind the copper flashing, that serves as secondary protection against the actual flashing that I'm going to put around the scupper now. So just in case the flashing ever fails, it still has to make it through that heavy seal of butyl that I've got behind here, which will never dry out. It will always stay pliable. It moves with temperature. So as it is, this is 100% sealed. And if you recall, I mentioned that these bosses were all gummed up with butyl before. No more butyl is going to touch this area. That's now clean, and that's the way it's going to stay. I just have to flash the outside now.
And the process is the same as you've seen before. I lay down my adhesive, I give it time to flash over. Once it's flashed over, I place my pieces of quick seam and I make sure I roll them out firmly to remove any air bubbles and make sure I have a really positive adhesion between the layers. Now I'm seam sealing all the edges, and normally there wouldn't be this many edges to seal. However, because I had to do the repair before I did the installation, there are almost twice as many that need sealing.
One down, 7 to go. So that should now be good for the life of the building. So with that one out of the way, I will carry on with the rest of them. Say to you, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned as much as I did. See you next time.